Hey, good morning, guys. Back again. It's Tuesday. So last night I got a message from a new subscriber who I appreciate what he said. He said he doesn't really agree with me, but he appreciates my channel and what I'm doing. I don't know if I ever mentioned on my channel the way I am. I welcome everyone's opinion, right? Even if you disagree with me. It's actually, I prefer you to disagree with me so I can learn something new, right? I'm not 70 years old, I'm not 60 years old, I'm not 50 years old, right? I'm still young and still learning, right? And people learn from factual things, but we also learn, as human beings, we learn from people's opinions, people's perspectives on how they see certain things. So I will begin this video by saying everyone's welcomed here. Like I said, I went and do my 4 groups: Democratic voters, Republican politicians, and Democratic politicians. Of the people I love the most and the people that I care about the most is the voters, whether you're Republican or Democratic voters, right? We are all in the same pot. We all need the same things. We all kind of want the same things for our kids and our future in this country, which is success and longevity, right? We don't want to like burn out quickly. We don't want this country to be lit in fire and disappear in like a year. So I would say the common ground here is we all kind of want the same thing for ourselves. So everyone's welcomed here. Whenever I'm angrily discussing a point, it's not at you, it's not at voters, anything like that. Whenever I say Republican, what's the point of the Republican Party, or why are Republicans doing this? It's not about the people that vote Republican. It's about the politicians, right? Right? When Ted Cruz does what he did when Texas was frozen by going to Cancun and then blaming his daughter, right? Right? As a person of character, I look at that other man and say, you have no character, you have no respect from me, right? Regardless of your politics. If he was Joe Biden did that, I'd say the same thing, right? Right? At the end of the day, it's not about politics, it's about common sense. And that's what my channel is about, common sense, right? I'm not going to say that my common sense is always good. My parents will tell you I was a rough kid growing up. My parents will tell you that. So I'm not going to say I'm the omega and alpha of common sense. I'm not the answer for everything. I know that, and I'm glad that I'm not that, because I would never learn. If I think I know everything, what's the point of me learning and listening to other people, right? So everyone's welcomed here, regardless of your politics or your religion. I really don't care. So moving on to news. So this morning, I woke up and I was really... we heard last night about the Officer Sicknick, right? One of the videos I did, the videos that was important to me after January 6th was the death of Officer Sicknick. I complained about the Blue Lives Matter people not peep out of them when Sicknick got smashed over the head with a fire extinguisher and pepper sprayed and assaulted by thousands of people marching over him to get into a Capitol building to disrupt one of the most important meetings. And Fox News always underplays this, like, oh, they're just good old boys having fun. When BLM marched in an empty Capitol building last summer, because it wasn't in session, right? During the summer months. Congress is not in session. BLM was out there marching. I even had screen caps showing the National Guard was out there, this was out there. And these are like young, black, white, mixed group of people. I mean, primarily young college students, young people. When you look at a BLM march protest, it's not like big burly black men. It's not like what your nightmare if you're scared of black. It's not that nightmare that white people go to sleep and maybe have nightmares of, right? It's not big muscular black men with like guns and machetes and like, it's not that. It's usually young, skinny, scrawny hippies and college kids and vegans and feminists. Those are the type of people that's usually in a BLM protest, right? Of course, protests, they might throw rocks, they throw whatever, there's going to be confrontation. But they're skinny, scrawny kids, and women mostly, right? Mothers. That's what BLM is. The Capitol riots, what I saw was a bunch of old white men that looked armed with military bulletproof vests, helmets. One guy had the zip ties, pepper spray. And that was the people that marched on January 6th. And the Capitol people were told to stand off. And Officer Sicknick went to the hospital as a result of them marching, and he died the day after, the night later on that night he died. And what came out today or yesterday, the medical examiner said he died of 2 strokes or a heart attack. 2 strokes and a heart attack, I think is what they said. I said, how the hell? What the hell? Like, he died of 2 strokes and a heart attack. Like, I don't understand it. And they say that his death had nothing to do with it's no correlation to what literally happened hours before, right? And the same narrative tells us that Derek Chauvin kneeling on some guy's, not even Derek, I'm going to say a man kneeling on another man's neck for almost 10 minutes. And that man died of a drug overdose. Not the knee to the neck, the drug overdose. A drug overdose or taking drugs. That's how he died. You know, and then the same narrative will come over and say, oh, Officer Sicknick died of 2 strokes and a heart attack. It wasn't what happened hours before when he was assaulted on the steps of the Capitol by 1,000 people armed to the tooth with military militia gear and all that stuff. It had nothing to do with them. He had a heart attack and a stroke. Now, as a attorney, you know, in a court of law, I would say, could you prove that Officer Sicknick would have died of a stroke and 2 strokes and a heart attack had he not been involved in altercations hours before, him having to go to the hospital? You know, like, come on now. All right, he was in the hospital dying because of what happened hours before. Whether if he died from his injuries, which apparently that's plausible. He might have got hit in the head, had a concussion, pepper sprayed, a respiratory thing. Obviously, he might not have died from those things, like a brain hemorrhage is probably, I don't know, right? But the stress of being in that situation got everyone looking at it, heart attacks, right? It got me a heart attack looking at it. So that's the narrative that's being written, and I don't know who's writing the narrative. Those Capitol rioters now are gonna be probably slapped with trespass and destruction of public property. And I think there is an assault on an officer, the mildest charges of assaulting an officer. And that's the narrative being written. And I don't know how I feel about that. I know some people might be like, oh yeah, that's what the law is saying, that's what the medical examiner is saying. But I don't know. And now the jury is still deliberating the George Floyd thing, and a lot of people on the left and the right, they're getting nervous. This morning I was driving my son to school. I was in Hot 97, and one of the hosts of the morning show they have there, he had an interesting point. He was saying Rodney King riots. We saw it on tape. They got let off. George Zimmerman got let off. You go back to Emmett Till. Right? Lynched, tortured, killed. Emmett Till's killer got let off. Usually by a juror that represented America, basically. The body that sits, the body of people that sits on a jury panel represents a slice of America, right? That's what, if you take randomly people from this country and put them in a room, put them in a box, that's America. That's what America sees, right? When Emmett Till died, that's what America saw. They didn't see anything wrong with that. When George Zimmerman killed a 12-year-old or 11-year-old, 13-year-old Trayvon Martin because he was walking home and he never saw this black kid in his neighborhood before, America saw that was okay for him to shoot this 12-year-old kid, right? No, go home, George. It's fine. You know, it's fine. You didn't do anything wrong. Yeah, black kid deserved it, right? He's walking wrong neighborhood, even though he lived there or whatever, right? Oh, Trayvon Martin, he was a troubled kid in school. He didn't get A's. And he didn't get straight A's. And he was cutting classes. So it's all right. You know, you killed a 12-year-old kid with a gun. You shot him in self-defense. All right, go home, George. No, don't see anything wrong with that, right? Rodney King, I'm too young to remember the Rodney King riots. I was really young at the time when that went down. I never really followed up on it as an adult. But you know, like I did see the footage of it, right? And that happens, right? And do you think Derek Chauvin will get off? Like I said in my last video, as a black man, in everything I've read in the history of this country and everything I've seen, America is not a great place when it comes to things like this, right? Right? You can say, make America great all you want. You can say America's a great country all you want. But this is a shitty, fucked up country. When you think about injustices done to citizens that live here that aren't white, right? I did a video a few weeks ago where I said I was confronting someone on Facebook, right? And I never go on Facebook when I always do. The once in a blue moon I go on Facebook, it's all I always run into the same old white guy from wherever, and he's always has this thing. It always comes in the conversation, right? We're talking about an issue, a racial issue, police issues, and a white guy always appears in the script, in the comments, and he said, "I don't see anything wrong with this. What's going on here? I don't see anything wrong with this." So if you watch Donald Trump for 4 years and all the white Republican men, right, in some sort of political power, they don't see anything wrong with racism or police brutality, because it fucking doesn't affect them, right? Right? If it doesn't affect you, like I always say, don't come to my table and give me your opinions, right? If I have a problem, my roof is leaking, and I'm like, how are we gonna fix this leaking roof, right? It's affecting people living in their house, but we have to fix the leaking roof. And I'm talking to my wife, or maybe my kids, or my brother, or whoever's living with me. How are we gonna fix this leaking roof, guys? And we're having a conversation, and all of a sudden, my neighbor comes in our home and said, "Oh, I don't see a problem with the leaking roof. My roof over there ain't leaking. So what the hell? Come on, guys, let's go out and barbecue. Let's go to the beach. Come on, what are you guys doing? You know, there's nothing wrong with the roofs. My roof isn't leaking, so don't worry about your roof." That's kind of how it looks. And the same thing with BLM and saying all lives matter, right? If your roof isn't leaking, stay out of the dialogue of people that's trying to fix their leaking roof, right? If you're going to bring a solution, if you're going to come, my neighbor's going to come over and say, "Oh, here's a ladder, here's some duct tape," as ridiculous as that is, I welcome that, right? Because that's a solution. That shows that someone who isn't under a leaking roof could understand that someone else's roof is leaking and needs to be repaired. And, oh, let's patch that up and let's go have fun, right? But no, you guys are going to come into my house and debate whose roof is leaking and whose roof is important and whose roof matters, right? We wasted, and that's what this whole George Floyd thing, we wasted a year as a country, right? Apart from COVID affecting us all, we waste so much time debating stuff because we don't want to see what the other side experienced, right? Right? Like I said, as a black man, I have been stopped by police driving, but 4 or 5 times driving. This is a traffic stop. Not in the last video I said the cops questioned whether I owned a white Mercedes, but this is just random traffic stops. I've been stopped 4 or 5 times in my whole driving time, like in the span of 15 to 20 years I've been driving. And every one of those times it was pleasant. I didn't feel like I was going to get killed. And one of those a couple of those times are actually all out of state, right? I think Virginia, Maine, Rhode Island, out of state, and like, places that's not New York, that's not diverse. And all the times the officer was white. And I never felt like he was going to shoot me, or if I reached to something, my life was in danger, right? But my personality, like, look at me as I'm talking to you, right? I'm not threatening to people. I'm not a threatening kind of guy. So I never felt threatened by any of the traffic stops I've been in, right? But when I see YouTube videos showing how a white guy on a motorcycle doing stunts or riding a bike illegally or doing something illegally that provokes people to call the police on him, and the cops show up and they're just very chill. "Oh, that's a nice bike. Oh, where you get those rims? Oh, like, where you guys heading to?" And the guy, the assailant, don't have ID, don't have registration, insurance, anything that says he owns the bike. But all he does is gives his phone and say, "Oh, my dad has all my information. Call my dad. Here's my dad's number. Call my dad. I don't have anything." And then the cops are just chill and just let him go with a warning. But I have to spend 30 minutes talking to cops to prove that my wife's car belongs to me, right? And that I live here. I'm not from out of town, right? And that's what makes me angry, right? And if you're white and it happened to you, or even if it, like I said, if it didn't happen to you, but you saw it happen to other people that look like you, and you realize it was only happening to them because they look a certain way, you'd be angry too, right? Right? Think about that. Think about American history. That's what American history was. That's why we fought the British in the 1700s. That's why we went to war with the British Empire, right? Because they're being biased towards the colonies. They're being biased towards Americans, right? Through tariffs and all that stuff. They're saying, oh, well, if you guys want to live over there, you're going to have to pay all this extra stuff for stuff, right? Or we're going to tax and import and all that. And you guys are like, I'm fed up with this. And you went to war with the British Empire, the strongest empire at the time, right? And that's kind of what we're doing. And things change. And now the British Empire and us, we're friends. Everything's all good. And we're living better for it. And I think that's what this dialogue is about, right? Like I said, I started this video saying we all have the same needs, the same wants as American citizens, as human beings, right? Whether you're American or Russian or whatever, right? Some end of the video there, they're still debating the thing, but oh my god, I went off on a tangent. So the radio host was saying, basically, if this Chauvin trial goes the way we all as black and colored people know it was gonna go, he's gonna go home by the end of the week. Chauvin will be eating dinner at home. I guarantee it at the end of the week, right? If it goes the way it does, America will burn simply because we've seen it. It would say to us, right, that the slice of America that looks at this, overall, a sampling of the overall view of Americans looking at this, says it's okay, says there's nothing wrong with that, what we see, right? And America will burn if that happens. It also says, that's one thing he said that's the scariest thing about this. The second scariest thing is that we have come nowhere, right? On the surface, yeah, we, white, black, we all live together, we all doing this. But on the surface is one thing, but underneath, we've not even come a centimeter. We haven't progressed from Emmett Till, from slavery. We haven't progressed anywhere, right? In terms of what we see, what this is, right? And he said those two things are the scariest things about this trial, right? And I think on the news they're talking about, is this more important than the OJ trial? Like, what's the significance of this trial, right? It's when you play a video game, right? And you get to a certain level and you hit the bell. If you die, you go back to that spot. You don't go back to the beginning of the game, right? And sometimes you could be playing a video game for hours and hours and you hit like 50 of those bells. And whenever you die, you just go back to the last bell you hit, right? To prevent you from going way back to the beginning, right? The bell, that means in regards to the systemic racism, whatever you want to call it, we've never hit a bell since Emmett Till. Because every time there's a trial, Rodney King, George Zimmerman, blah, 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 every one of these trials, the Fruitvale Station trial with the taser and the gun, right, we just go right back. Not guilty, right back. Right back to Emmett Till. Not guilty. Right back to Emmett Till. Not guilty. Right back to slavery. Right? We haven't moved an inch from 100 years ago. And that's the saddest thing he said about this. And then he says, I wouldn't even know if I want to live in a country like this anymore, because it just means we're never gonna get out of this. This is just, it's like a handicap, right? There's certain physical handicaps you just can't grow out of, right? Right? My son is 2 and he has seizures. He has seizure disorder. And when we discovered it, when we diagnosed this, the doctor said, as parents, we worry, like, oh no, oh my God, like what's going on? Is this going to affect his development, his growth? That's the first thing you worry about as a parent in regards to this. And the doctor goes, Mr. Johnson, don't worry about this. This happens a lot with boys. They'll grow out of it because the brain is still spongy. It's still growing. It's still malleable. And it's disorder in the brain, and the brain will expand and grow out of this. And then he'll be just like a normal, when he's 4 or 5-year-old boy, 6-year-old boy, normal childhood, right? As parents, we're so happy because we're not stuck in this handicap. And that makes us happy for the future for him, right? If you look at race relations as your child, and your race relations has like a seizure disorder, some sort of disorder that keeps it stuck in this infantile stage, and it never grows out of that. Like, how would you feel? You'd want your kid to grow up and be strong and better and healthy and happy. But I don't know, we refuse to let that thing grow up and just move on from it, right? Anyways, 20 minutes. I've gone on too long, but thank you guys for watching. Bye.